What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Two Bucks Sports Podcast, coming to you live on this Wednesday night. Here with my colleague, Uncle Buck. Uncle Buck, there's a lot of stuff going on in the sports world right now.
Oh, what's up, Buckets? It is nice to be back in North Mississippi to record a podcast in my podcast chair, in my podcast studio, as you may, as I guess any room that you record a podcast in is a studio.
Sure.
So here in my home studio, aka the den, I'm just glad to be back home to record a podcast and not on the road messing with glitchy hotel Wi-Fi.
Go Power Rangers.
Yeah, so I'm a fully trained Power Ranger for now until the next training comes up that I need to go to.
Yeah, glad to have you back where we can hear you. Doesn't sound like a whisper at the beginning of the podcast, but
right.
Got you loud and clear tonight, sir.
Yeah, mistakes were made. My full disclosure, last week when I was recording remotely in beautiful Jackson, Mississippi, my MacBook charger decided to go kaput, and so I recorded it on my iPad. And so if there was any glitches, blame Apple. Everything I had was Apple. So.
Yeah, hard to beat just get old-fashioned mic and computers. So we're glad to have you back in action, back like you never left. And here tonight to talk about a ton of sports, which, Drew, one of our favorite sporting events happened this past week. And I think we agree on this. It should absolutely be a national holiday.
Yeah, we branded ourselves at the start of college baseball season as the premier college baseball podcast. Our teams, however, are less than premier college baseball teams at the moment. So, we're the boss of this show, of this outfit. So if we just want to rebrand to an MLB podcast, the competition is greater. Mm-hmm. But, so far the Cardinals have more wins than Ole Miss has in SEC play, and Mississippi State has in SEC play, and they've only played 5 games.
Yeah.
So
same with the Cubs, man. The Cubs have won just 3 games. Got postponed today, got rained out today. Big thunderstorm coming across the Midwest, but off to a better start than Mississippi State has been in conference play, including beating a former Mississippi State Bulldog in Brandon Woodruff for the Milwaukee Brewers. But yeah, national opening day should be a national holiday. Everybody should be able to get off, go to the ballpark, have a drink of choice, a hot dog, enjoy the sights, sounds, and smells of what is the best sporting, in my opinion, if not the best, top 2, maybe 3 live sporting events, and that's baseball games. I've been to some NASCAR races that are a ton of fun. Professional hockey is a lot of fun. There are a few things that get people together, even if you're not a baseball fan, like a minor league, major league, college, whatever, higher level baseball game.
And I'll tell you this. The older I get, the more I settle into the lifestyle and enjoy the lifestyle of a baseball game's atmosphere. It's normally, especially once you get out of early April, and for college baseball, because college baseball starts in February, but once you get out of early April, make it through March of college baseball, and the weather starts warming up, and the grills start smelling good, and the hot dogs taste better, the tea's sweeter, everything is just better at a baseball field. And I feel like that has changed. My point of view on that has changed as I've gotten older, because I used to want to be right in the middle of the student section of a football game. There was nothing better than the energy and the excitedness of a football game. And whereas I do love football still to this day, love going to football games, my own personality meshes well with baseball.
I'd agree with that. It's just that more laid back, enjoying the sights and sounds. You can talk, you can chill. You got some downtime between innings, but there's just a buzz about baseball games that's a little bit different, especially on opening day.
And my Cardinals are not off to the best start, but I haven't been more excited about Major League Baseball than I have been this year in a while. It's a new era in St. Louis. You had the reunion of Pujols last year, which just pulled at everybody's heartstrings, even non-Cardinals fans. I mean, you can admit Albert Pujols is one of the greatest to ever play, hit 700 home runs.
Of those 700, I think 559 came against the Cubs.
Yeah, and 500 of them came as a Cardinal. 400 plus of them at least came as a Cardinal, and so you got to have him come back. It's the first opening day since 2004, I think, or 2003, where Yadier Molina has not been behind the plate. But they've got a team full of hitters. They've got a team full of guys that you like to root for. And honestly, since Pujols left, they hadn't had the caliber of superstar that they've had with Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt. And so another year of them just leading the team. They hadn't got off to the greatest start. They're 2-4. The first two series have been against the Blue Jays, which are good out of the American League. And the Braves have beat us twice in a row to start a series at home.
And the Braves are good because they're healthy right now.
And I'm telling you what, they can flat hit the ball.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time. Actually, this is probably all the time I'll spend talking about the Cardinals. But I think it's exciting, and I'm looking forward to it. Have you gotten to watch any Major League Baseball yet?
I have. I've watched some on TV. It's been interesting watching the pitch clock and the hitter's clock and how that's affected the game. There was the average length of games last year, and I don't know the exact numbers. You might have them, but I know it was about a 30-minute speed up with the pitching clocks this year for the games on opening day compared to last year's game average time.
Yeah, and it's just made for a much more watchable product for me because it wasn't necessarily the length of the game that bothered me. It's not like I was ready to go to bed, but it's the feeling like it never progressed within the game that bothered me. And so it's been interesting to watch that. It feels a lot more fast-paced. And it's also interesting to see, like, baseball doesn't change. Football doesn't change, really. I haven't seen a major sport change as drastically as baseball has changed this year. And so it's cool to watch it happen early on and in person because you're seeing pitchers and hitters learn how to game the system. Max Scherzer is the funniest pitcher in the world now because he's just standing on the rubber, catching the ball, standing on the rubber and waiting and making that clock start and just using it as a way to make hitters completely uncomfortable.
Yep, and he'll either pitch it immediately or wait until the last second to throw the pitch. And it's still a good way to mess with hitters' timers. Don't forget timing. Don't forget there's also the rule change on the base path, and it was evident today that it played a factor in the Braves-Cardinals game. Ronald Acuna was on first, and I forget who was pitching for the Cardinals today, but he picked
Miles
over
Michaelis.
He picked over twice today, and you only get 2 attempts. And if you get a third unsuccessful pickoff attempt, the runner gets to advance the base.
Right.
And so he picked off a second time, and Acuna got up and looked at his coach and the first base ump and said, "That's 2, right?" They said, "Yeah, that's 2." And he said, "All right." And on the next pitch, as soon as he came set, off he went. And he stole second base by about 10 minutes.
Right. I told you that was one of the things I was looking at with the pitch over. I think that could affect the outcome of the game more than balls and strikes because pitchers aren't going to be able to keep runners honest by the continuously picking off or pick-off attempts at first base or any of the bases, really. And so you can't keep that runner honest by repeatedly doing it. I know who was I? I was watching Ole Miss play Vanderbilt, and Enrique Bradfield Jr., the leadoff hitter, All-American stud, the fastest man I've ever seen run bases in my life.
Weighs 100 pounds soaking wet.
Right. He's always on first base. It's mind-blowing to me how we constantly had him on first base. And we'd pick off 7 or 8 times. I mean, just to keep him from getting that extra step to steal a base or because a ball in any gap, not even to the wall, he's scoring from first. And so if you can get that extra step to keep him from taking that extra step, it can go a long way, and it's vital. And so in Major League Baseball, that is very interesting to see how that's going to do because fast guys are going to steal a ton of bases. And that's exciting for me because baseball has been nothing but strikeouts and home runs for a decade, it feels like.
Yeah.
And Haley made the comment to me the other day. She was like, college baseball is great because there's a lot of singles. And I was like, yeah, that's true because You always got guys on the base paths. That's what makes baseball exciting. Home runs are exciting, but striking out 200 times in a season is not good for a good baseball.
Right. We really could see the return of some 50, 60, 70 stolen base guys that we haven't seen in a decade because of these new rules and the guys getting on base, the opportunity to move up. It takes away, baseball purists want to whine and talk about it takes away a lot of the strategy. But in my opinion, it brings in a whole different strategy because you have to be selective with your pitch outs and you have to be selective with your pickoffs. You have to know the timing of the clocks. And so it's a whole different strategy, which is, like you said earlier, I've never seen a sport change like this outside of maybe some motorsports with things that they did. But like it's bringing in a whole new era of the game that's going to change it completely. And like we've talked about on this podcast, I've said a number of times, if it gets more fans of baseball, then I'm here for it because it's going to attract a different clientele, a different crowd that's going to watch it that may not have watched it before. Because like you said, and like Haley said, there's more activity. You get more people on base. You get more things to, move the game along. It might generate some more interest.
Right. And one of the things that you're going to have to, the thing about the baseball purists, and I get it if you want to, one of the things that's great about baseball that's different about NBA and NFL is that you can kind of compare these players with players 100 years ago. It's the same game, same rules. It's the same game. You always hear back for baseball. Since the live ball era, this player has done this. That's the, in football, it's the stats errors. Since they started recording sacks, Refrigerator Perry is X, whatever. Michael Strahan is the sacks leader since sacks became recorded stats. And so we actually are seeing right now a line in the sand, and we can look we need to look from this point forward differently than what we look at this point backwards. Like that, it did change the game. And if all you care about is the game staying the same, well then rightfully this should make you mad. I would argue that the game as it was flawed and was not gaining any more fans, and this is good for baseball.
Yeah, my argument would be welcome to the 20th century or 21st century. Like we're moving the game along, bringing in a new crowd, younger crowd, TikTok generation. They like short, sweet things that they need to be quick through. And so this is an opportunity to bring in new fans and revitalize the game because Rob Manfred hasn't done a ton to do that so far the last few years.
Well, and baseball is doing what the NBA has done. They're making decisions based on television money. And baseball is a sport that is enjoyed best in person. That's been its whole billing. It is the greatest sport to watch in person.
Which is why they do all these big blackouts, and which is a whole other conversation.
Which is going to be my next point. You've made this now more appealing for television for folks like me in North Mississippi or you in South Carolina that don't have a major league team close. It's necessary for me and it's important to me that I'm able to enjoy watching it on TV. And I've never been able to truly enjoy the whole broadcast. It's like The Office. You put it on when you're doing chores. It's filling the empty space in the room, and then you catch it every once in a while and you don't miss anything. So they have made this better for TV. So the next thing they've got to do is get rid of these blackouts because there's no reason in the world why in North Mississippi I cannot watch the St. Louis Cardinals on national television.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree 100%. Here we are. I'm in South Carolina. I am 6 hours from the nearest professional baseball team. And I can tell you a lot of Braves games are blacked out here, thinking that a 6 hour is 6 hours. So what I'm going to drive 6 hours, watch a 3 hour game, and then drive 6 hours back home on a Tuesday night. That's not going to happen.
No, it's the same distance for me to get to St. Louis, or Atlanta for that matter. It's about 5.5 hours either way.
Yep.
And so they've got to fix the blackout thing. They've got to find a way to make baseball players and highlights more accessible to social media and to spread, because that's another thing the NBA does incredibly well is they market their players. It's a players league. And baseball, for the first time in my lifetime, and probably the first time ever, they've got real characters. They've got people with a lot of swagger and a lot of
bona fide superstars.
Right. And I mean, even guys like Jazz Chisholm for the Marlins, he's on the cover of MLB The Show and nobody knows who he is. But if you just watch him, if you watch Juan Soto or what the short Tatis for any of the Padres,
Yeah.
Machado, Tatis, Acuna. These guys have so much swagger and they can be billed as such superstars. You're paying them like superstars. Let them have a fan base. Mike Trout could walk through this world and nobody would know who he was.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I couldn't agree more. Mike Trout is known by such a small population of baseball purists because we recognize that he's one of the greatest hitters that we've ever seen in baseball, and definitely back to some of the old hats back in the day. We've got our first real true two-way player in Shohei, who, I mean, nobody really knows what he looks like because they're buried in Anaheim. And so I couldn't agree
and on the West Coast where nobody wants to stay up and watch their games.
Right, because first pitch for me here on the East Coast is 10 o'clock, and we all know it is well documented. My bedtime's 9:30. I ain't sticking up for that.
I was going to say, Rusty is in bed 30 minutes before they even throw the first pitch.
Mm-hmm.
They have not sang the national anthem, and Rusty is asleep.
I am in my first REM cycle. That is no secret. But, yeah, man, hey, speaking of the Marlins, did you see those clean throwback jerseys they wore the other night?
No, I didn't. I have.
Oh, my gosh.
I do kind of keep up with the Marlins from a distance. I kind of stat watch because their opening day catcher is a fellow by the name of Nick Fortes, who is an Ole Miss graduate and played for Ole Miss for several years. And so when an Ole Miss guy makes it to the major leagues, I have to watch because we don't have too many of them.
Well, look it up right now while we're chatting about it. If y'all haven't looked them up, Google Florida Marlins throwback jerseys 2023. They went back to the 90s.
Rusty. Yeah, they're the Miami Marlins.
Oh, sorry. Yes, excuse me. The Miami Marlins now. So the 2023 Miami Marlins throwback, they went back to the pinstripes with that Miami green.
Miguel Cabrera.
Yeah.
Jerseys.
The Dominic Wilkins jerseys from back in the day, man. Those looked so clean the other night, even with that gaudy logo on the sleeve that they wore, but they looked so clean the other night.
Yeah. They're good. And I'm going to do better about Major League Baseball this year. Major League Baseball is a sport to where I watch my team. I don't really watch anybody else, and I don't really know. You've got to really cross a major superstar threshold before I realize who you are. So I'm behind on a lot of the really good players, I'm not really aware of a lot of them. And so I'm going to do a better job of keeping up with Major League Baseball this year, especially as the NBA season winds down.
I just think there's just so many superstars and things to watch. And I'll watch games of I'll watch the big rivalries, right? When the Red Sox and Yankees
Subway Series.
Right. I'll watch those big rivalry games. But you're right. I'm going to do a better job this year watching it. But listen, we've got another thing coming up that is a great background sports filler that's given us some phenomenal moments over the years.
It is nap watching at its peak.
I mean, you've got things like the Amen Corner. You got Jim Nantz with his smooth tones talking you through a 28-foot putt, or Tiger laying up, trying to hit in from 180, and he hits it.
You've got holes like Dogwood and Tea Lily and Red Fern. Or
for those of you who don't, you got pimento and cheese sandwiches for $1.50. You've got candy for $1.
For all the dummies out there, tell them what we're talking about.
We're talking about the one and only Masters at Augusta National. It is Masters Week, which Drew and I, we share an affinity for a local sports personality in Memphis by a guy named Chris Vernon. And one of my favorite traditions around the Masters is his Masters song, "What's Going On at Augusta?"
Yeah, and
we
so
get that coming up, and I'm fired up.
Yeah, so shameless plug to one of our podcast heroes, Chris Vernon. If you get a chance tomorrow, I think they start the show at noon. It's live streamed on YouTube. Or you can get the podcast version later. I highly recommend getting on YouTube and watching it because they will do Masters updates. And it's tongue-in-cheek because the Masters is so prim and proper, and they don't have fans. They have patrons. And like he said, Jim Nantz talks in a elevator voice, and it's just so smoothing and relaxing and so proper, and fathers and sons, and they just lay down a beat and rap the leaderboard, and it's
in
hysterical.
These big sunglasses and feather boas and leopard robes and just what's going on at Augusta.
Yeah,
and they rap the updates from Augusta, and it's hilarious. So Taylor's brother Bowen, who's born and raised in northern West Virginia, came to me and he was like, "Hey, yeah, you're a Grizz fan." He said, you know who Chris Vernon is?" I'm like, "Yeah, how do you know Chris Vernon?" He goes, "I love his Masters songs.
Right.
I love his Masters update." And I'm like, man, he's going global if they know everybody in the sticks of West Virginia.
Yeah, and it's gone super viral in the last few years. And so y'all check that out. But as far as me and Buckets go, I've told you before we've drafted our favorite sporting events, and I believe you took the Masters right out from under me. It is peak golf watching, and golf watching is something I do 4 times a year. It's the majors, really 3 times a year because the British Open is not on at a reasonable hour. And so 3 times a year I'm watching golf, and on Sundays at least. And so this is like the peak of it. And so I'm really excited about it. I wish they wouldn't do it on Easter weekend. That's the big. It's nice on Friday because I'm off on Friday, so maybe I can watch a lot of golf on Friday. But I really want to watch on Sunday. And Easter Sunday, the obligations. You're not close with your distance-wise close proximity to your family, so you may be able to get to watch, but we're planning on going to my mother-in-law's, and I know we're going to be hunting Easter eggs, and I'm just going to be thinking in the back of my head, wonder what's going on at Augusta,
Text you updates because I'm gonna be perched on this couch here. It's supposed to start raining Friday afternoon and rain till Monday morning here at the beach. So no beach weather this weekend. So I will be parked on my couch, and when I wake up, I'll send you updates about where we're at. Because Drew, there's always a story with the Masters. Whether it was we talked about this. I talked about this when I picked the Masters. One of my favorite Masters memories was being at Gordon Biersch in Myrtle Beach when Tiger won it just a few years ago.
Yeah.
And everybody was glued to the TV. We had finished eating, I think, going to a movie or something, and wrapped it up, and then all migrated to the bar because you knew this was a moment, and just the levity of it with all the stuff Tiger's been through. There's been Bubba Watson. There's been these different stories, guys making a run. Will Zalatoris a couple years ago in his first Masters just dominating all the way through the final day. This year there's a lot of guys that can win it, from Scotty Scheffler, Brooks Koepka's getting hot. It's a wide open field, in my opinion, this year. John Rahm, Spieth has always got a shot. I never count out Tiger, even though he's not the Tiger of old, but there's something about when he steps through the gates at Augusta National that he thinks he's 19 again. But I'm excited about this weekend. I don't really have a ton of plans this weekend other than church on Sunday.
Right.
So I'll be watching me some golf this weekend, and
Yeah, the biggest storyline this year is the LIV guys.
Yes, yes.
All the guys, Patrick Reed and Bubba and Phil and DJ and Brooks Koepka, all those guys are returning for their first tournament after leaving the PGA Tour. The Masters let them come back because they've qualified. The Masters are weird. We can get into PGA versus private events. This is a tournament that is, the field is set by the Masters. And so if you're a former winner, you have a lifetime invite to it. And then everybody else, you have to be top 50, I believe.
Right.
And so this is not one of those where the PGA Tour can flex its muscles and say, no, you left us, so you're done. The Masters said, no, you can play.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be really fun watching that leaderboard. And if we can get a Sunday pairing between Rory and Patrick Reed, or Rory and Dustin Johnson.
Yeah.
The vocal right and the vocal left of for and against LIV. I mean, it would only be muffled in comparison to if Tiger made a run. That's the only thing that could supersede this war that'll play out this week.
Because you took my point from him, man. Rory McIlroy has been the most vocal. He's been talking all that noise about live this, live that. We're playing the true tournament. We're playing in the true leaderboard here. PGA is where you're supposed to be. And now it's time to put your money where your mouth is, man. You talked a lot of smoke for somebody who's got to play some of the best golfers in the world at a tournament that he historically has not done overly well at. We'll see.
Yeah, and so tomorrow, for those that want to keep up, the first tee off is at 8 a.m. and I believe that's going to be Eastern time, so 7 a.m. Central for all of us in God's country here in the correct time zone. 8 a.m. With Mike Weir and Kevin Na. So I mean, don't wake up for that.
Kevin Na's not
but
bad.
then, of note, former champion Sergio Garcia, also a live guy, tees off at.
Who is good for an epic meltdown on a hot mic.
Right. He is at 9:12. Patrick Reed, infamous villain and live golfer, at 9:24.
One of the worst golfers on the tour, but one of the best paid.
I mean, he's got multiple. I mean, he is easily the most hated golfer of all time, but he wins. He wins when it matters. He tees off at 9:24. Bubba, 2-time Masters champion and live golfer, at 9:48. He tees off with Seamus Power, which is one of the greatest names in the field. Had 2 aces in the par 3 today.
Yeah.
Tiger Woods is teeing off with Victor Hovland and Xander Schauffele. So that's a really solid pairing there at 9:18 local time, 10:18 Eastern.
Yeah, sorry for my my 10 a.m., 11 a.m. patience. I'm gonna have that pulled up.
Yeah, a good group to watch. 10:42, 9:42 Central. Justin Thomas, John Rahm, and Cam Young.
Great.
Yeah, and then Cameron Smith, Hideki Matsuyama, and Sung J M at 10:54.
3 totally different swings and styles, but that'll be an interesting one to watch as well.
Yeah, I'm looking for Zach Johnson, Jason Day, and Gordon Sargent, which is an amateur, is at 12:48 Eastern. DJ, Corey Connors, and Justin Rose at 1:12. Scotty Scheffler, our homie Max Homa, and an amateur Sam Bennett at 1:36. And the second to last group to tee off is Roy McIlroy and Sam Burns. And the last one is Jordan Spieth, Tommy Fleetwood, and Tony Finau. Where he be now, Tony Finau?
I love Tony Finau.
I'm going to be glued tomorrow. I'll be honest. It's like you said, it's supposed to be raining all day here tomorrow too. So I'm going to be in the office doing, computer work. And I'm going to have it up on the screen, just browsing the Masters the way you're supposed to with it on TV2.
Yep.
Until Sunday.
Yep. I'm going to take my spare laptop here that I'm recording on, have the Masters queued up, and be watching that all day while I'm trying to work.
Right.
But
tell you what, we know one of us is a doctor. He just said spare computer. He's got 2 computers, guys.
Yeah, instead of Kevin Gates having 2 phones, I got 2 computers over here. Yeah. Moving right along, man. Another big event. We're wrapping up March Madness. Drew, what an epic Final Four, and then not so epic championship game. It was well decided by halftime. UConn was just a bunch of bullies, and they just stymied. That was like I think I read that was like the 8th or 9th time they've held a team under 35% shooting. It was San Diego State's second worst for shooting performance of the year. Absolutely dominated for 40 minutes, left no doubt who the national champ was, and absolutely worked San Diego State. After what was a great Final Four, Miami was competitive for the first 3 minutes against UConn, but that San Diego State FAU game will go down in NCAA lore as one of the greatest Final Four games to watch.
I was reading that. Ooh, I'm coming through on your mic. Back up just a little bit. Sorry, guys. A little inside baseball here. So I was reading that. We good?
I think so.
Testing. Okay. Sorry, guys. Just bear with us here. I'm trying to get worked back into the home studio.
Drew said in a text message over the weekend that we are the redneckiest podcast y'all probably listen to. So just bear with us.
Yeah. And so I was reading. I'm going to start this sentence for the 4th time now. I was reading this weekend that shot, the San Diego State shot to beat FAU, was the first time in Final Four history that a game-winning shot was made with time expiring, when it wasn't a tie game. So it was the first time that a team was down, went ahead, and won the game as the clock expires. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because 2 years ago, you remember Gonzaga beat you or had that Hail Mary from half court. Jalen Suggs hit that Hail Mary from half court, but that just tied the game. So that's what it was, the first time in NCAA tournament history that the losing team won the game on a last second shot, go ahead shot. So it's cool.
It was also almost on the same exact square that kid, his name just left me, from Villanova, hit the game-winning shot. Chris Jenkins against North Carolina in Houston, same side of the court, same elbow, almost the exact same spot that he hit that game winner to win the national championship.
Well, that was actually so Chris Jenkins, that was the Gonzaga play. I don't know if that's the one you're referring to, the Gonzaga game winner. I can't remember who it was against, but Chris Jenkins, that was he inbounded it, they ran up court, and he threw it back, and he shot like a 35-foot three to win it. And that was a tie game, and he went ahead. So if he missed it, they're going to overtime. But I think I need to go back and amend something I said last week and kind of apologize.
I am correct. I was right. It was the Chris Jenkins buzzer beater three gives Villanova the victory over North Carolina at the same exact location.
Yeah, it was in Houston. You're right. Mm-hmm. And so I need to apologize because I told you that I was right originally. You remember I said that March Madness is great for the first weeks, and then I want the blue bloods.
You took my notes away from me. I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, and then I amended it to say this was good for basketball, that you've got an 8-5 matchup in the Final Four and then a 4-5 matchup on the other side. I just could not make myself care about that game, that final game. I couldn't. I saw UConn, and I hope UConn doesn't get a demerit look when you look back and they're like, oh, well, they just played San Diego State. There was a bunch of upsets. They didn't get to play the top dogs. Because I believe UConn was the best team in the tournament by far. Even the teams that got beat that, if they would have not gotten beat, I like UConn's chances. That team was incredible. However, maybe FAU would have gotten me a little bit more excited than San Diego State. But San Diego State UConn just did nothing for me. I wanted to be excited about it, and I wanted to say it was good for basketball because I believed it at the time. But then when the rubber met the road, man, I just could not get excited about that game. And I was right because it was a bloodbath, and it was not fun to watch when I made myself watch it.
Yeah. That was UConn's 5th title game since 1999. They're one of the blue bloods. You got one of your elite level programs, even though they were a 4 seed or whatever. They still had that pedigree, and they obviously had the better players. They were bigger at every position, particularly in the paint. That Jackson kid could absolutely just flat play basketball.
And the Sonogo kid is just a handful.
He's a bully, man. Yeah. Such a bully. And then Klingon was just a load down low, nothing else. He was just big. Right. And San Diego State didn't have any answers for that. I full disclosure, I went to bed at halftime because I saw the writing on the wall and knew what was happening.
And I kind of got that feeling going into the Final Four that the only team that might beat UConn was Miami.
Yeah. And they looked lost.
And they looked awful. Yeah. And it just, it didn't do much for me. We do have a winner of our bracket, though.
We do. A clear-cut winner.
Yeah, the winner by 50 points is Han BB 24. So Han BB 24 picked UConn to be in the finals but lose to Arizona. And I don't have any idea who this is.
I ain't got a clue.
We want to send you a shirt. So Han BB 24, please identify yourself. I will design a shirt for you. We will send it to you. You've got to promise to make a social media post of you wearing it because I want to see it.
And we want to know who you are.
Yeah, but you've got to identify yourself. So we're not just going to rely on you listening to the podcast. We're going to put this out on social media and let everybody know, like, hey, if you know this person, identify them. You see something, say something, Yeah. And
we grow as a community. We grow as a community. But, Drew, they've already released the way too early 2023-2024 college basketball poll that CBS always does. Local Memphis talent Gary Parrish wrote this article releasing the top 25. Biggest movers were Creighton moving up 20 spots, Houston moving down 14. Your top 5 for next year are your UConn Huskies, Purdue Boilermakers, Marquette, Miami, and FAU are your top 5.
Ooh, they put FAU in their top 5. That's really reactionary, but I get it.
They return a lot. They
yeah.
potentially could return a lot if they don't transfer out. You got Creighton at 6. Your first SEC team is Alabama at 7. Arkansas 12, Kentucky 13, Tennessee 16, A&M 19, Auburn 22nd, and what is this? Mississippi State 25th.
Oh, wow. I tell you what, nothing more accurate than a basketball poll a week after the season ended.
Hey, but we're in it. That's all I can say.
That's fair.
We got some somber news about Mississippi State with Tolu Smith has entered the draft, but he is not signing an agent to keep his college eligibility.
That happens a lot in college basketball. I know that former Ole Miss great Terrence Davis did the same thing, and he ended up staying in the draft and got signed as a free agent. Matthew Morrell, our best player this year, has done the same thing, where he is going basically, if you don't sign an agent, you don't take any money from whatever, you're still can go work out and do all this stuff and maintain your eligibility for the NCAA. And for an upperclassman,
it's smart.
It's a no-brainer. Why not?
Unless you're like a top 10, top 15 pick, it is the absolute right move to make, just to get an assessment, see where you're at, because they're going to tell you what you need to work on. And what better place to work on that if you're not going to go to the G League than right back where you were in a system that clearly works for you because you're getting noticed.
And use it to your benefit and drive up that NIL dollar.
That's what I was talking about that with somebody just yesterday. Like, that's what's going to help these kids coming back. Used to, the draw was, I'm going to the league because I got to get paid. Right. Well, a lot of these guys now, unless you're a top 40 talent, you're going to get paid more in college with these NIL deals, particularly like Tolu Smith at Mississippi State or some of these guys at these smaller programs where, like, you're the stud. Like, you are the one of one on that campus. And so get your money as a college student instead of going ahead to the league where you're going to you might end up taking a pay cut.
Well, and that's the reason why you've got players like Drew Timme at Gonzaga and I forget the guy's name from North Carolina, I think he's the all-time leading scorer at North Carolina.
Yeah.
Baycott, Armando Baycott.
Yeah, that's it.
They're coming back to school, and it's not because, they love college. It's because they've got a second-round grade, and if they go to the NBA, chances are they're going to get a two-way deal, and then you can go to Gonzaga, and it's been rumored that he's making like $1 million a year. And so it's a shorter season. You can stay healthy, and then you can always, anytime he's ready to go to the NBA, he can go be a two-way and prove himself. But you don't have to do it right now.
Yeah.
It increases your money-making years, honestly, because he's going to make more money at at Gonzaga, and Armando Baycott's going to make more money at North Carolina than they're going to make in their first 2 or 3 years in the NBA.
Yep.
On a per-year basis, anyway.
That's what I'm saying. Like, just get your money, get your free Raising Cane's or whatever else sponsorships you get, and be in a car commercial, man. Make your money in college. So, Tolu Smith, I know you're a big fan of this show. If you're listening, come back to Starkville. Stay one more year.
Yeah. Go to Ole Miss. We're looking for transfer. We're looking for portal, guys.
Yeah.
So,
but, hey.
All right. So, that puts a bow on the college basketball season. March Madness as a whole, it was an outrageous success. I've told these podcast listeners many times, I root for chaos, and there was chaos in bunches. We had a 16 upset of 1, we had a 15 upset of 2. We had a 9 seed in the Final Four. We had a 5 seed and a 4 seed in the Final Four.
And the championship game. I'm pretty sure we had an online, not going to steal a tweet from not Kenny Rogers on Twitter, but I'm pretty sure we had an online school whose basketball team met in the parking lot prior to the game, upset Virginia and Fairleigh Dickinson.
Yeah. And so it was incredible. And so it was a very successful March campaign. I wish they would have stuck the landing better, selfishly. Yeah. But I believe ultimately you ended up with the right champion, regardless of how you got there.
Yeah. UConn will always hold a place in my heart. When I was in PT school, I picked UConn to win the national championship in our class bracket. And it was the Kemba Walker year when they got hot in the Big East tournament and
Cardiac
made that
Kemba
run. Yeah. And if UConn didn't win, I was going to finish like 8th or 9th because it was just terrible. But I was the only one that had UConn in the Final Four championship and as my champion. And Cardiac Kemba won me $100. So I will always have a soft spot for UConn and Kemba Walker in my heart.
That shot that he hit to win the Big East championship game in Madison Square Garden,
50 feet, just
when he just crumbled the guy at the top of the key on a crossover and hit the buzzer beater. It's one of the all-time great college basketball buzzer beaters of all time. So
absolutely.
That's what I've got about college basketball. But we've got big news in the NBA front.
It's a parade inside my city.
Yeah, it's a parade inside my city, yeah. As Skip Bayless would say. The Memphis Grizzlies are headed to the playoffs.
Woo-hoo.
And it's something that we knew. What we did not expect, though, was last night they cemented their second consecutive 50-win season, which is huge. I mean, anytime you can win 50 out of 82 games, that is a season that you will remember forever. It's a great season. They also set the franchise record for most home wins with 36, right? 35. So 35 out of 41 wins, home games were wins. And for a city that
association this year.
Yeah, that's the best in the NBA. And for a city that reps their team as hard as Memphis reps the Grizz, for them to show out like that on their home court is just incredible.
We didn't lose a home game from February 7th until March 28th. We won every game from February 7th to March 28th. We lost on the 29th in a back-to-back, but we just absolutely held home court. That's why those top 2 seeds are very important for us to get, because we're better at the Forum.
Right.
And just impressive basketball, considering, Drew, like we've talked about. We could go back on this show about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we're the most downtrodden. I think we talked about the Grizz for about 8 minutes that night, because we had lost Steven Adams, we had lost BC, Ja was going through his stuff. Like, the season was over, and we were like, we were going to land maybe in the play-in game at this point. And for us to overcome all that adversity, to still be in the hunt for the second seed, to have the best home record in the association, and just be a team that nobody wants to play right now. When you got Nuke Kennard hitting threes from all over the court, Jaren Jackson Jr. is playing his best basketball. Steven Adams is getting an MRI this week. Fingers crossed. We're a dangerous team.
Yeah, so the Grizzlies, their magic number is 2 to lock up the 2 seed, which they've got 3 games remaining. If you win 2 of them, you're guaranteed the 2 seed. And that number changes if Sacramento were to lose, then the magic number is 1 because they are the 3 seed. The Grizzlies are currently 2 games up on Sacramento. And so that 2 seed is great because, one, you're going to get a team out of the play-in, and we'll talk about the playoff picture in just a minute. But the most important thing is you will have home court advantage if and until you face Denver, the 1 seed. So if Denver happens to get ousted, you know, there's some good teams on the bottom half of these standings here in the West that Denver could run up against, including a second-round matchup with possibly Phoenix. That would, if Denver gets ousted, we are the home. We've got home court throughout.
And that happens, right? Because the clear-cut best teams in the NBA, in most people's opinions, are in the East. It's the Celtics and 76ers. But the West is deeper
and the
from
Bucks.
top. And
the Bucks are the best team in the NBA.
Yes. And from top to bottom, though, the West is deeper because you've got teams like the Warriors, the Lakers in a play-in game, the Pelicans when they're healthy. You know, you've got these really good teams from top to bottom. And so not a lot of teams you want to face. You certainly don't want to be facing them on the road. So we need to lock up that 2 seed so we can have home court, because Denver is notorious for getting bounced early. And I would rather play Phoenix at home in a Western Conference final scenario than I would having to go to Phoenix. Yeah,
for the exact same scenario that we just talked about. The Grizzlies are 35-6 at home, and they're currently 15-23 on the road.
Exactly.
So, let's just set the stage. We have
real quick.
Every team.
I got one thing real quick before we get there. One thing I want to talk about. What's been our biggest struggle since Steven Adams has been out of our lineup?
Oh, rebounding.
Rebounding. So I read the stat today, the Steven Adams stat account, which if you listen to this podcast, please, we want to have you on here. We're a Steven Adams stan account, just like you are. If you're listening over there in New Zealand, give us a shout out. We want you on the podcast. But Steven Adams hasn't played an NBA minute since January, but still leads the league in most games played with 7 or more offensive rebounds with 12, 8 or more offensive rebounds with 7, 9 or more in 4 games, 10 or more in 4 games, and 11 or more offensive rebounds in 2 games.
Right. Wow.
We need Steven Adams back to help with our rebounding woes, particularly with that little tap back or that little put back shot that he has made a career on, especially since coming to Memphis. Steven Adams, get well soon.
Yeah, and it's going to be a true 50-50 shot from what I've read.
Yeah.
It's not one of those things that's going to get kicked down the road. If his MRI is clean, he's going to play. They've held him out long enough to be precautious. If it's good, he'll play. If it's not, he's done.
Yep.
Xavier Tillman, up until last night, he had a dreadful game last night. But he has been incredible. He's going to give you everything he's got, which is really all you can ask out of somebody like Xavier Tillman. And it's the reason why I love him, because he's going to give it everything he's got every time.
Absolutely.
He's going to have to really set the tone and sell out to rebound in the playoffs if Steven Adams can't come back.
Yeah.
But the Grizzlies offensively have been incredible. They've hit a stride without Steven Adams that I didn't think they could hit.
Right.
And so it's going to be interesting to see how it works. And honestly, it's going to depend on the matchup more than anything. Steven Adams, if a team goes small against us, the way Minnesota did last year, with Towns playing out wide, playing beyond the 3-point line as their 7-foot center, that really limits Steven Adams' effectiveness anyways. So it's going to matter a lot about the matchup anyways, but you want to have him if you need him, because he is very important to this team. Let's just talk about the Western Conference standings real quick as we go in. This time next week when we record, playoff matchups will be set, and I believe we'll even maybe have a play-in game or two.
We'll have a play-in game too. Real quick, just to kind of talk about your point, I was looking up something. That's why I was kind of toned out. Just real quick before we do that, in the last 10 games, the Memphis Grizzlies are shooting almost 51% from the field. A big part of that being Luke Kennard bringing in just his accuracy. Santi Aldama's been shooting a lot better, which is, again, like we talked about, a rising tide lifts all ships. And so Dez has been shooting better, but our offense has been lethal. I mean, we scored 151 points, one off the franchise record last week. You're right. We're playing a lot better offensive basketball at the right time. But yes, setting the Western Conference playoff picture as it sits at 8:22 Eastern, 7:22 Central Time on Wednesday, April the 5th. This is our rundown.
Yeah, so you've got Denver that's locked up the 1 seed. Well, not locked it up. They're 2 games ahead of Memphis.
They're tanking.
2 games behind Memphis, Sacramento. 2 games behind Sacramento. 4 games behind Memphis is Phoenix. And then Golden State sitting at 5. With a half-game lead over the Clippers at 6. And then the Lakers have surged lately. They have won 7 of their last 10. They are tied with the Clippers for the 6-7. Clippers hold the head-to-head. So they've got the 6 seed. Lakers at the 7 seed. New Orleans a game back for the 8 seed. A half game back of New Orleans is Minnesota, who has just been horrendous lately. They are half game back of New Orleans for the 9 seed. Oklahoma City 2 games back for the last playoff spot. And you'll notice that our boys in Dallas have fallen out. They're a half game out of Oklahoma City for the 10 seed. But Oklahoma City and Dallas play in Dallas tonight.
Yeah, and the Clippers and the Lakers are playing tonight.
So, huge night in the NBA. Which matters for the Grizzlies.
I love watching the Mavericks fall apart, by the way. They're talking about shutting down Luka and Kyrie until next year. Like, just what an epic flop. And I freaking love it.
And Luka has come out and been the vocal, leader that you want him to be. Like, the heat's on me. I'm going to play as long as we have playoff hopes. I'm not going to sit out. Kyrie's going to do what Kyrie's going to do, which nobody can predict. But as far as the Grizzlies go, we're going to pretend that they're locked into the 2 seed. That is the overwhelming favorite right now for the Grizzlies.
Particularly what we have left.
Right. So if the season ended today, the Grizzlies would play the winner of the Los Angeles Lakers and the New Orleans Pelicans. I believe that the Lakers are going to move up and the Clippers are going to move down.
Oh.
And mainly because I don't trust the Clippers. The Grizzlies and the Clippers played twice last week. In the second game, the Clippers were dominating us.
Mm-hmm.
The Grizzlies inched back at halftime to make it respectable, and then Kawhi Leonard just decided he wasn't playing in the second.
He was done.
He was going to save himself for their next back-to-back. They were playing the next night against New Orleans, which is more on their same battleground here. They're fighting, so they were going to put all their time and energy on New Orleans. He played 41 minutes and they lost.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I'm hoping that the Lakers move up and the Clippers move down, because I don't really want to play the Lakers. They've got too much size for us. I don't really want to play LeBron. I'm not scared of any of these teams. I think that any of the teams that could play in the play-in, the Grizzlies would should be favored. Now, the national media will not pick any of the Grizzlies over either of the LA teams, but I do not feel scared of either of those teams.
No.
I secretly hope, and you can give me who you hope we play. I would love to see New Orleans in that first round matchup. We've had their number all year. There's this looming is Zion coming back thing, which could be a problem. But when you don't play for a whole season and you come back for the playoffs, what are you really? Like how good can you be? And a great Zion does change my answer, but not to bank on a great Zion right now.
Right. I would agree. I think New Orleans is a team that we do very well against in the playoffs. Like you said, we own them this year. We play them tonight in about actually playing right now.
They're playing now. Yeah.
Playing right now. And
Grizzlies are winning 21-17 with 5.5 minutes to go in the first quarter.
And that's without Luke, Ja, and X. They're all inactive tonight. They were last minute scratches as we're getting ready for the playoffs. But I agree. I think New Orleans is a team you want to play there. I'm not afraid of the Lakers. I would rather beat the Lakers.
Right.
Again, like we talked about on here, to be the man, you got to beat the man. So I think I'm talking myself into changing my answer. If for the ease of it, sure, the Pelicans. But I want to shut. And I know they shouldn't be living in my head, but I want to shut up Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp. Give me the Lakers. I want to beat them in a playoff series. I think we can do it. We've had their number this year outside of that one game. I think we do really well against them, particularly if Steven Adams can come back. I think I'm going to go Lakers.
For me, to speak to the other side of a Lakers matchup, what scares me is not necessarily the matchup. They are big, they are athletic, and they're healthy right now, which in itself gives me a little pause. What gives me the most pause is the whistle. And I'm not a blame the refs guy, but if you're not biased, that the Lakers are going to get the whistle.
Sure.
They have gotten the whistle the last quarter of the season to get them to this point. Now, health has helped. Obviously, they've gotten healthy, and that creates a better team. But when LeBron was down, Austin Reeves, of all people, was leading the NBA in free throws.
Yeah.
That does not happen. And I know that's his game. He is a slasher and a cutter. But
that's not going to happen if he's in Dallas.
Austin Reeves does not get a superstar whistle if he doesn't play for the Lakers. And that's what he's gotten. And that's what they're going to get once we get there. We know it.
You're not wrong, especially with as aggressive as we play and as chippy and chirpy as we play. LeBron's going to get those calls. I agree. But still, man, to be the man, you got to beat the man. Like I wanted to beat Vandy in that college baseball championship. I want to beat Alabama so bad my teeth hurt. I want to beat the Lakers. I have that same argument. I have that same mindset with the Warriors. I want to meet up with the Warriors. Yeah, absolutely. If I want to beat these, I want to beat the teams that nobody's telling us that we can beat. Like if we're gonna do this, then let's just daggum do it and beat the teams we need to beat. Let's beat the Lakers. Let's beat the Clippers. Let's beat the Warriors and go win a freaking NBA title.
All right. Speaking of NBA titles, I was reading this today. Again, we are not sports reporters. We're sports readers and relayers. Okay. So 538 ESPN's, mathematical wizard that they do. They have 2023 NBA predictions. This is as of today, right? Yeah, April the 5th. I had to check the date. They have the percentage chance that they will make the playoffs, make the finals, and win the finals. So the overwhelming favorite to make the finals, first off, let's start at the bottom. Teams that are projected to make the playoffs. So the Mavericks, who we've talked about falling out, they're only giving them an 8% chance to make the playoffs. They're currently the 11 seed. They have, out of the West, the Pelicans has a 55% to make it. The Clippers, who are a half game up and playing the Mavericks today, they have them as an 85% chance to make the playoffs, which means they're going to make the play-in. So that probably should tell you what you think about tonight's game as well. To make the NBA Finals, the leader, according to 538, with a 39% chance to make the finals, this is surprising to me, is the Boston Celtics. That's regardless of conference. So they give the Celtics a 39% chance to make the finals, the Bucks a 25% chance. Okay. Hold on. All right. They give I just shifted my list somehow. They have the I'm sorry, guys. The Celtics is a 39% chance to make the finals. The second team that they have ranked to make the NBA Finals, regardless of conference, is the Memphis Grizzlies at 28%.
Let's go.
So that tells you what they say about the West as opposed to the East. The next highest percentage, the Nuggets at 25, the Bucks at 25, and the Sixers at 21. So they rank the East Celtics, Bucks, Sixers, which I would flip Bucks. I would say Bucks, Sixers, Celtics, but
yeah, because there's that underlying drama there in Boston with Jalen and Jason Tatum, and it's just Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. It's just not cohesive right now.
Right. To win the finals, the leader that they have to win the finals are the Celtics at 28%. The Bucks are at 15%. The Sixers are at 13%. The Grizzlies are at 12%.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
There's a chance. So that's what we're looking forward to. This is to me the most exciting time of basketball pre-playoffs because you are really seeing jockeying going on.
Yeah. The
Nuggets, who are the 1 seed, totally took their foot off the gas last night and lost by 20-something points to the Rockets.
Yeah.
Who, if you didn't hear me talk about their playoff odds, it's 0. I think they've got 20 wins on the season.
They're who the Grizz put up 151 on the other night.
Right. So there is a chance. And it says a lot about the difference in the East and the West. The West is deeper, but the East is front loaded, and they've got some real horses on the top end of that.
All right, Drew. So all to that point, I'm going to read you some stats. Okay? No offense to Mike Brown. He's doing a great job. But this year, the Grizzlies had a collective miss of 251 games due to injury or illness.
Right.
Games missed due to injury and illness by their projected starting 5 was 94 this year. Only had their original starting 5 for 11 games. Are the second youngest team in the NBA. Have the best home record in the NBA. Have gone back-to-back 50-win seasons. And if everything plays out, will be back-to-back second seeds in the Western Conference.
And that just goes to show you how well Taylor Jenkins has done.
What I'm saying is, if that's not a resume for the friggin' coach of the year in the NBA, then this whole thing is rigged. That is an absolute stunning resume. I mean, my goodness, man. All 251 collective games. You missed your star Ja Morant for the better part of 8 games, plus his injury earlier in the year. You missed Tripp for the very beginning of the year. You haven't had Steven Adams, your rebounding stalwart, since January. We played more. The other night we had Ja plus friggin' and this ticked me off too on Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless talking about the Clippers beating the Grizz and going on, but they never once mentioned it was Ja in the Memphis hustle. Like Jake LaRavia got significant minutes that night. They didn't mention that. All they talked about was, Memphis talks his noise and they lost to the Clippers tonight. Yeah, it was Ja and the hustle. And like he's still taking that product and making even in that Clippers game, we were competitive with Ja and the Memphis hustle. And so Taylor Jenkins should be your defensive coach of the year. There's no two ways around it.
Yeah, and it should be
coach of the year. No two ways around it.
And it's the third year he should win it.
Yes.
They gave it to Thibodeau 2 years ago because he resurrected the Knicks, and then when they should have given it to Monty Williams for the Suns for their better resurrection,
right?
Being a top 2 or 3 seed that year. And then last year they made up to Monty Williams and gave him the award over Taylor Jenkins when the Grizzlies surged to the 2 seed out of nowhere. They were in the play-in game the year before.
Right.
And then this year we're the 2 seed again, despite missing all of our players.
Yeah.
And so what's encouraging to me looking towards the playoffs is this team now has some scars.
Mm-hmm.
It's the reason why Sacramento's the 3 seed, but I don't buy them. I'm not buying them going against a 5 seed or a 6 seed, rather, like Golden State. Like, I'm not going to pick them to beat Golden State because they don't have those scars. What they've done is incredible. And Mike Brown's going to win Coach of the Year. And what they've done is incredible because they've broken a 16-season playoff-less streak. And that should be noted. That is a great accomplishment that Mike Brown has done. However, they don't have those scars when it comes to the playoffs. The Grizzlies have developed those scars. They've returned ultimately the same team 3 years in a row and battled in playoff games and lost the series in an 8-1 matchup in year 1 in the playoffs. Year 2 in the playoffs, we won a series and then lost in 6 to the Warriors. This is year 3. We've got the scars, and we've got to capitalize on it. And home field matters.
Yes. And what else helps us, Drew, and you and I were kind of hoping for a bigger move at the trade deadline, but there have been 2 players in the history of the NBA that have shot over 48% from 3 in a season. Kyle Korver shot 49.2, and this year's Luke Kennard shot 48.9. Like, I will never understand where he was getting all these healthy did not plays on the Clippers, where he was buried on that bench. My man shot 48.9% from 3 this year.
Yeah, he made somebody mad, apparently. He has been so good.
So good. And who's not on that list? Steph Curry's not even on that friggin' list. 2 players, Kyle Korver and your Luke Kennard.
Yeah, and Curry has never been – he's the greatest shooter of all time, but he's never been the greatest accurate shooter of all time, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. He is pure volume.
Just volume.
Shooting close to 40%. He's never shot 45 or 44. It's always been heavy volume.
Yep.
And a lot of trick shots.
Yep.
And he's great. He's the greatest shooter to ever play the game.
Sure.
But he's not Kyle Korver. He's not the greatest pure shooter.
3-point shooter.
Speaking of, you just listed 2 white 3-point shooters. I've got to read you this. Did you see Joel Embiid's quote on how he learned to play basketball in Cameroon? All right, so for all of you that don't know, Joel Embiid is from Cameroon, which is a country in Africa. When he was a kid, he taught himself how to play basketball, basically. And so this is the quote. This is from his, I believe he wrote this on the Players Tribune a while back, and it started making its rounds again today. It comes on the heels of him scoring 52 last night, half of his team's points,
right?
Virtually locking up the MVP.
Dominating in the second half and willing that team to win.
So He was born in Cameroon, and this says Embiid came to America as a 16-year-old. He had size but no basketball skills. And this is what he wrote about how he developed his basketball skills. He said, and I quote, "So I'm chilling one night and I go on YouTube and I'm thinking I'm about to figure the shooting thing out. I got in the search box like how to shoot 3-pointers. Nah, that's not it. How to shoot good form. Nah, that's not it. And then the light bulb went off, man. I typed in the magic words, white people shooting 3-pointers. Listen, I know it's a stereotype, but have you ever seen a normal 30-year-old white guy shoot a 3-pointer? The elbow is tucked, man. The knees are bent. The follow-through is perfect, always. You know how in America there's an older guy wearing Everlast kind of shorts out on the court? That guy's always a problem. His J is always wet. I seriously got in the league by watching YouTube and living in the gym. There's no other way to explain it."
What
So
a quote.
He was watching Kyle Korver shoot.
Absolutely.
On YouTube.
Mike Miller and Kyle Korver over and over and over again. Let it fly. Mike Miller, former Grizz.
Elbows always tucked, the knees always bent.
That's it, man. Killing it, man. But yeah, stay tuned for more Grizz content as we get ready for the playoffs. That'll start into next week. Ready to move into that next chapter and watch those Grizz excel, man. And if you haven't been paying attention, Taylor Jenkins for Coach of the Year, Jaren Jackson Jr. for Defensive Player of the Year. First team all defense. Shout out Tony Allen.
Yeah. DPOY and first team all defense for Jaren. First team all defense for Dylan.
Yes, I mean absolutely. There's no argument to be made otherwise. Your other points are invalid, but
last team all offense for Dylan, but first team all defense.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're down to our last topic, Drew. We are a college baseball podcaster after all, and the streak is over. I'll take wins where I can get it, man.
Both teams started 0-7, but
now
finished 1-8.
We're now a combined 2-16 in SEC play. But your Mississippi State Bulldogs ruled one of the best hitting and most efficient teams in college baseball in the South Carolina Gamecocks in Starkville on Friday. Played a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'll dive into Mississippi State real quick, and then you can talk about Ole Miss since I've already started running my mouth. But Thursday night started off a competitive game, had a shot to win, hung with them, but didn't have enough to seal the deal and lost to South Carolina. It was a very close competitive game Thursday night. Really in it until the last bit. We lost 6-4. Had a really good chance late too with a couple runners on, but Hunter Hines struck out on an inside fastball that was. It was close, but it was too close to take on a 2-2 count, and we lost. Come back Friday, man, in just rebound status and ruled South Carolina 13-3 in 7 innings. Hit the ball all over the yard. I think we had almost 18 hits that night. Just absolutely ripped the cover off some of their better pitching and played with them and showed that what we could do. We didn't hit batters, we didn't walk guys, and actually looked like a competitive baseball team. And then for 8 friggin' innings on Saturday, same thing. We were back and forth with him for 8 innings. We were competitive. We had great outings. You know, Nate Doan was our starter, and he's been pitching really well and had a rough start. We've had 3 straight games where we've given off a leadoff home run, by the way, which is just wild. But he bounced back and pitched well, got some good middle relief innings. Kate Smith pitched well. Itema came in and pitched some good innings towards the end. But Drew, for 8 innings, we were competitive. But those of you keeping up at home, you know baseball games are 9 innings long.
Yeah. And y'all lost barely in the 9th inning, didn't you?
We went into the 9th inning down 7-5, and South Carolina plated 7 runs, and we lost 14-5. Just got absolutely mollywopped in that last top half of the 9th, man. They just were like, it's like that old Bugs Bunny episode. I sent you, I tweeted out that GIF early in the season where they're just like cha-chaing around the bases, man. There was nothing we could do. We hit batters, we walked batters, we gave up hit after hit after hit, and just completely got just washed by South Carolina.
That happens a lot on game 3 in college baseball. You
Sure.
run out of arms, especially when you play 2 competitive games against a team that's much better than you.
We were playing well above our head. Like
Right.
there's no reason we should have been competitive. South Carolina, they've lost 3 games this year. One of them to Mississippi State.
And they beat they shut out Miami 5. Sorry. They shut out North Carolina, which is ranked 15, 5-0 last night.
But what came out of that is we had Dakota Jordan was your SEC Player of the Week last week. In 17 plate appearances, he had 10 hits, 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, and an 811 OPA. And Drew, I told you on this podcast when the season started that as Slate Alford goes, our offense will go. And he had 2 home runs in that win again on Friday, and he was 0 for 4 on Thursday, and he was 0 for 5 on Saturday.
So what you're telling me is that Slate Alford needs to hit 2 home runs for you to win an SEC game.
Whatever it takes. But Dakota Jordan hit the ball really well. We played well, and like the thing is, like we were competitive for 2 games. Well, that'd be like 2.9 games or whatever, because we were competitive except for that 9th inning on Saturday. So it sucks losing like that. But then we bounced back last night and beat poor Grambling 21-2. Just absolutely murdered them on Tuesday night, which is Grambling. But we needed that, right? Like we talked about on the podcast 2 weeks ago. We need a palate cleanser. We need that because we got Alabama coming to town this weekend. And
at Alabama.
Right, sorry, at Alabama this weekend. And this is our chance to win an SEC series because our next series is Ole Miss, which there's a chance. Auburn, and then you got Tennessee coming up. And so this is a chance to get some momentum heading into that Ole Miss series, who is a team that we have not lost a series to since 2015. But anyway, got a chance to get some momentum this week against Alabama, and we need to capitalize on it.
Yeah.
Last thing I'll say, and then I'll shut up for a minute, but I like our rotation this weekend. We've got Cade Smith back in a starting job on Friday night. We moved Jurangelo to Saturday, kind of taking some of that Friday night pressure off the freshman. And then we've got Landon Gartman pitching on Sunday, which I do like that. He's pitched really well in SEC ball. This is our shot. We got it's another, Thursday, Friday, Saturday series this weekend against Alabama. Got to get a series win here. Got to go 2-1 at least here, man. This is our chance to get some momentum heading into a rivalry series with Ole Miss. This is our shot. If this is Chris Lemonis at this point, it's probably coaching for his job. And this is your chance. You've got to go win this series to get some momentum heading into SEC ball.
Yeah. So Ole Miss was a lot of the same as Mississippi State, except for the one lopsided loss. We played Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday, we played. Oh my goodness, I'm getting old, Rusty. I'm forgetting everything these days. Yeah, A&M on the road, and we're winning. And A&M's not. They had 1 win in the SEC. We had none. Okay. And they had 2 hard series too. I think they won 1 against LSU and got swept by Tennessee. I think is how it went.
Yeah.
So much like Ole Miss, 0-6. With 6 losses to Vanderbilt in Florida, there's not a lot that you can be like, well, crap, we should have beat them. You'd like to win some of them, but it's clearly Vanderbilt and Florida are the 2 best teams in the SEC.
Yeah.
And you go into A&M with an opportunity for a little bit of a palate cleanser, and we have the lead going into the 7th inning when we have about a 2-hour rain delay. And you come back from the rain delay, and immediately they load up the bases and hit a grand slam, and the game ends. It's just over at that point. You lose by 2. Kemp Alderman had a home run late to cut it to 2. But, it was over. You lost another one in heartbreaking fashion, much like the Florida series last weekend. Saturday, we got our first win, and they looked really good. And like I told you would probably happen, Ole Miss changed their starting lineup. They left Jack Doherty at Friday night. Saturday, they threw their normal Sunday guy in Xavier Rivas, a lefty, a JUCO transfer. And on Sunday, they threw a different freshman, JT Quinn, a big hard-throwing right-handed guy who had been doing midweeks and then relief work in SEC play on the weekends. and he looked really good. He 4 or 5 innings of pitching, only had 2 walks, I think 4 strikeouts, limited a lot of the damage on Sunday, and they let another one get away from them. Ole Miss was down by 1 in the 9th inning. They load the bases with 1 out and hit a deep sacrifice fly with the back up against the wall, makes the catch to tie the game, and can't get another runner across. It's kind of been the same story with Ole Miss. It's like you're right there on all these. When all you need is that one more hit, that one string that next hit together that can win it for you, and they can't do it. And A&M walks it off in the bottom of the 9th to lose by 1 and lose the series. Lose 2 out of 3 on the road at A&M, and it sets up really weird because I feel like Ole Miss is not 1-8 bad. I don't think I'm pumping sunshine here. Like I said a minute ago, you've got 3 losses at Vanderbilt, and you've got 3 losses at home to Florida, the number 3 team in the country. And those games were all close for the most part, except for one. You have leads in 2 of the 3 Florida games late in the game. And then you do the same thing this weekend against A&M. It doesn't seem like they have the character, the intestinal fortitude, I guess, yet to know how to win that game. And when you replace all your senior leadership and you bring in a whole new crop of guys, it feels like something you've got to work out, but you hope to stay afloat, to tread water while you work it out. But they just have not been able to stay afloat. And so Arkansas comes to town this weekend, and they're looking salty like Arkansas always does. I hate Arkansas. I want to beat the ever-living snot out of Arkansas.
In everything.
Yeah, and so it's going to be interesting. I've yet to go into a series thinking we're screwed, and I don't feel that way this weekend. We've always played Arkansas really well.
And Arkansas has been struggling a little bit as of late.
And Arkansas, Ole Miss has Arkansas lost 1 SEC series at home the last 2 years. Both times it's been to Ole Miss, or the last 2 times Ole Miss has played at Arkansas. And so Arkansas comes to us this time. And so, like you said, both of us kind of want a win this weekend because you look at next weekend being a rivalry week, 1, but 2, a team that's also struggling. And you look at them, you're like, okay, that's the team you can get right against.
Yep. They won 15 in a row, lost 2 to LSU, beat Omaha, and then took 2 out of 3 from Alabama, but not in convincing fashion. And so they're not
that Alabama loss too was a whoop.
12-1. They got whipped. And that was at home. And you don't lose at the Brom like that. I mean, they did not play that game very well, did not play that series very well. So that's a very real chance that y'all could get some wins in that series.
And so you're not going. Ole Miss is 1-8 in the SEC. To get to 15-15, you've got to go 14-7 the rest of the way. That is hard to do. However, last season, Ole Miss was 7-14 and got to 14-16, eked into the tournament. We all know how that worked out for us.
Right.
So you eat an elephant one bite at a time, but this is the time. If Arkansas comes to town this weekend and sweeps Ole Miss, or even wins 2 out of 3 against Ole Miss, it's about time you can put a fork in them, because this team isn't good enough to sweep a lot of teams, and especially not sweep the amount of teams you need to sweep without a loss, like a true sweep. That they're not good enough to do that against the remaining teams on the schedule.
Maybe Georgia, because Georgia's not that great, but you're right, because you've got Mississippi. You go to Starkville, LSU comes to town, Georgia comes to town. You play at Missouri, who's a better team than I thought, and a lot of people thought. And then you got Auburn at home and at Alabama to close out the season. So the road doesn't get super easy. I mean, that Georgia series is probably one you can win. Auburn, Alabama, maybe, but I mean, you're right. You got to find some wins when you can.
The best way to end this season is to have series against Missouri, Alabama, Auburn, and who am I missing?
Georgia.
Georgia. That's how you want. That's who you want going down the stretch.
Yeah.
However, you can't need 12 games to get to where you need to go with those teams remaining.
It's still SEC baseball, and those are going to be
Right.
they're not all winner. Like that Missouri series is at Columbia, and that's just a long way from Oxford. That's a long way to go play baseball, and they play well at home. And so,
Right.
yeah, I mean,
so
you got to find a way to get a win this weekend.
You really don't need to go 8-4 in those last 12 games. You need more cushion than that.
Yeah.
But you certainly can't put yourself needing 10 or 12 wins in the last 4 weeks of the season. That's why this turn, you've got this 3-week stretch is maybe your hardest 3 weeks because you've got Arkansas and LSU, and you've got Mississippi State, which is a rivalry game.
Yeah.
And you don't look at Mississippi State and think, okay, that's a war. You think they're as good as us. That's our best chance. And Arkansas and LSU is better than us, but you've got to win 2 of these 3 series just to have a shot at making a run late.
Especially, and y'all watch this, especially when you're having to cancel midweek games left and right, man. Got more canceled midweek games than any other team in the country right now.
Listen, you cannot tell me that, one, we've talked about the Louisiana Tech thing. That was lightning, okay? I've defended that. I'm right. You're wrong. You can keep throwing it in my face if you want to. The next thing I'm right about is they were trying to play baseball on freshly laid sod. Our pitcher turned his ankle trying to field a ground ball in front of the pitcher's mound.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
And, okay, thank you. So
let's not –
yeah.
At the rate y'all are canceling midweek games, you need to get a win this weekend because you may not have opportunities to beat Memphis and Alcorn State and some of these other games you got coming up. Got to get the wins in the SEC ball when you're going to be canceling midweeks. If you can't win them,
cancel them. And if you don't do the same thing, and let me be honest, we were beating Southern Miss. Nobody's scared of Southern Miss. We've already beat Southern Miss once this year. We're not scared of Southern Miss. So get that out of your head. And also, Scott Berry, the head coach of Southern Miss, his team is having to play on the same field, and he agreed. If you think Mike Bianco has the leverage to walk up and be like, this game is over, we win, and then walk off the field, you're out of your mind.
I just made an observation. That's all. All I'm saying is you need to get some SEC wins if you're going to keep canceling midweek games.
How about this? How about we play the midweek games and cancel the SEC games and call those wins? I'm all for that.
Especially in, 2 weeks after the Mississippi State series when LSU comes to town. Just cancel those and call them win.
If we get up a run in the 6th inning, I'm going to start banging trash can lids together and call it lightning and see if they can cancel it.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, listen, if Alabama can keep claiming national championships, y'all can keep claiming SEC wins and canceled games.
Yeah, I mean, the only I've said this 100 times, and you keep bringing it up, which means I have to defend it again, even though I'm right and you agree with me. Keep bringing it up. The only time where you can kind of side-eye Ole Miss, like, oh, I see what you did there, was when they canceled Arkansas State last year. They just flat canceled it with beautiful weather. Because they couldn't handle the RPI hit in a win. And you know what happened because we did that? We got into the tournament. You know what happened when we got in the tournament? We won it. So
all I'm saying is, I'm just saying, y'all cancel more midweek games than any other program in the history of college baseball.
They're not canceled. It was bad weather. And why in the world do the Mississippi Braves lay sod 2 weeks before opening day?
I think Mike Bianco did that.
Oh, yeah. We carry a bunch of sod in the team bus.
He called him up and said, listen, boys, I need y'all to lay some sod in case this doesn't go well against Southern.
Listen, Brian Snitker, a head coach of the Atlanta Braves, World Series champion. This is Mike Bianco. I was wondering if we could destroy your double A stadium real quick so I can get a win over Southern Miss.
Because we need to dodge that smoke.
Yeah.
Those mustard buzzers.
And by the way, we're winning it. We're going to win anyways. So.
Mustard Buzzers got a real good team, man. So one thing I missed, I did want to talk about is, and I'll be real brief in this as we're wrapping up. I know we're coming up on a longer episode, but I was looking at some stats today. The disparity in some of the Major League Baseball payroll is wild. Have you seen some of this?
I mean, it's a tale as old as time.
Yeah, I mean,
I can tell you the teams that are spending, and I can tell you the teams that are winning. Like.
Oh, I'm sure. No.
Yeah.
I'm not. It's just wild. Like the disparity to me. Like the New York Mets are the number one highest payroll because I mean they've got Scherzer, they got Verlander who's not even pitching right now, but their 2023 total payroll is north of $336 million.
Right.
For a team that's probably going to finish second or third in that division.
Yeah, I mean the Braves are good.
Braves are good. The Phillies are going to bounce back. I know they're winless right now. They might have won today, but they'll bounce back. They're too talented not to. They've got my forever Cub, Cal Schwarber, but the disparity in that one. So they're 336, second place in the Yankees at 268, Padres at
$70 million difference in 1 and 2.
Yeah, but the biggest, so 336 for the New York Mets. What team is the lowest? You know?
If I had to guess, I would say the Oakland Athletics.
At $43 million. Just north of 40.
Billy Bean ain't there anymore. You got to start spending money. You don't have your wizard there.
They have got $43 million on their payroll. So you're the math whiz. That's almost $300 million.
Yeah, right. And you know what's crazy? $343 million. That's what you said the Mets are spending this year?
336.
Shohei Ohtani's about to sign a $500 million
contract, and he's worth every friggin' penny.
Yeah.
There's a really great article, if you haven't read it, about how he gave up $200 million to be able to be a two-way player because he was going to come to the bigs at first as just a position player, wasn't going to get to pitch, but he gave up a $200 million contract to stay in Japan and be able to be a two-way player, won every conceivable award, stat, championship in the Japanese league, and then now is about to sign a $500 million contract.
The only thing that Shohei Ohtani has done poorly since deciding he's coming to Major League Baseball in America is pick the team he was going to play for.
Absolutely.
Because he had his pick. I believe it came down to Seattle and the Los Angeles Angels.
Mm-hmm.
Or if Seattle was one of the final handful he was choosing from. The Los Angeles Angels are just a disgrace.
Yeah. Especially you've got two generational talents and a decent team around them, but you just can't win.
Yeah.
Just can't win.
It's in the water.
Yeah, apparently. But Uncle Buck, you got anything else you want to talk about?
That pretty much covers it for me. I'm going to get off here and go put the kids in bed and watch the end of a Grizzlies game.
All right. Tell them where they can find us at.
Yeah, so as always, we'll tell you that you can find us on Instagram and on Twitter at 2Bucks Sports Pod. Facebook, 2Bucks Sports Pod. YouTube, you can find us right here. Also at 2Bucks Sports Pod. Reach out to us. Let us know you're listening. I did have a friend. Shout out to Bobby Felker and his wife Kayla. They texted us the other day, and they said that we sounded professional.
Ooh.
And I sent you those messages, Rusty. I believe they said that we were well educated and podcasty sounding. So that we had a professional podcasty voice. And immediately my first response was like, huh?
Naturally.
I have a voice. I'm a professional of using it, but I would not say it's professional sounding. So I know Bobby listens. So Bobby, what's up? I'll see you on Sunday. But yeah, check us out there. Interact with us. You know, if you interact with us, we're going to talk about you on the podcast. So bring it up. And also, folks, somebody find our boy or girl, Han BB24. We want to send them a shirt. We need to know what size.
So we need to know.
We need to know Han BB24, whoever you are. I've assumed it was a girl because Han, I was like, oh, maybe that's Hannah. I don't know. It could be Hannibal. So whoever you are, Han BB24, you got a shirt waiting for you. It's free. And we want to send it to you. So,
absolutely. And again, like Drew said, let us know. We'll get you a shirt. We want to see some social media pics with it on there. Back in the day, Drew, they used to do a thing with the Daily Corinthian and who could have the Daily Corinthian in the coolest spot. And BB24, wear our t-shirt in the coolest spot. We'll get you on our Instagram. We'll get you on the podcast for sure. So, yeah, man. Awesome.
All right.
Thank you, Uncle Buck. Another great episode. Enjoyed it. And we'll be back here next week.
All right. See you guys.